Over the past couple of years, the phrase TikTok is getting banned has become kind of like the new sky is falling for all the Chicken Littles over the United States.
Sky is falling! The sky is falling!
TikTok, for anyone who's lived in a cave for the past half a decade, no judgment by the way, I almost moved into one mid-COVID, is an app that has very quickly become one of the most influential social platforms of all time, thanks to, in part, dances like this one.
Like a bottom, you a turtle little body, ain't no wife or body. I'm a fuck a friend.
TikTok's rise to the top has been more explosive than a case of day after Taco Bell diarrhea. The app has really captured such a large swath of people in the United States and across the world because it really has a niche for basically everyone. It feels very much like you're just talking and chatting with people all across the world who live in a community that is so specific to you. Something about the informality of the platform makes it feel like you have friends everywhere, like you're just listening in on their conversation. And all of that is thanks to TikTok's crazy algorithm. The classic FYP, the For You page, its recommendation algorithm baby. One of the really distinct things about TikTok, for those of us living here in the United States, is the fact that it's actually not owned by a US-based company. It's the first really major social media platform, sorry, Discord, you don't really count, that isn't owned by a major US company. And that's really important because it sparked all kinds of debate and conversations around national security and data privacy in a way that just didn't really happen on a legal scale with US-based companies, despite the fact that they take equal amounts, if not more data, but whatever. Recently, the TikTok community has been under threat from a new proposed bill called Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. It's a mouthful, but essentially what it's trying to do is it's trying to ban any kind of major communications network that isn't owned by a US company within US borders. It's aimed specifically at trying to protect US national security, and it's very interesting because rarely before have we seen an instance like this where a specific company is named. TikTok is very specifically named in this bill as it's owned by ByteDance, which has ties to the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. Basically what the bill is saying is that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, has cooties and our US government daddies don't want us playing with them. The bill is basically looking to stop the distribution and maintenance of any kind of foreign adversary controlled app within the United States and to stop it from being hosted on platforms like Apple's App Store and Google's Play Store. And if the bill becomes a law, which it probably will, companies that fall within this category have 6 months to comply. But because they're such nice guys, the government provided a loophole, an escape clause, if you will. Basically, they said that if ByteDance were to divest US operations to a company that's not considered a foreign adversary, then the ban would be reconsidered. Additionally, there's a provision allowing users to retrieve their data from the app before any kind of potential ban takes effect. Thank God, because that way, if TikTok does get banned, at least then I can get my cottagecore thirst traps and my vegan parenting videos back. The bill defines a foreign adversary as any country designated as such, including China or a company controlled by such a country under significant influence from it. Basically, it's just your standard US operating procedure. The bad guy's the bad guy because we say he's the bad guy, and if you don't like that, you can just go eat a dick, or at least until they ban that too. What a quandary. The bill includes a really interesting stipulation by which the commander-in-chief, the president, has the power to label any company as a threat following a public notification and a report to Congress. Gee, I don't see that getting abused, no matter who wins the next election. The bill gives the president the power to slap ByteDance and any other company they deem a threat with civil penalties if they don't comply with the ban or if they refuse to transfer any kind of user's data off of the app. And it has information on like timelines and stuff like that. The idea of a potential TikTok ban has TikTokers like me panicking more than those guys at the disco. I mean, who can blame us? TikTokers, I mean. We can definitely blame the guys in Panic at the Disco, especially Brendan Urie, like his whole megalomaniacal ego trip that broke up the band, and I digress. Anyway, from a content creator myself and for content creators who have built their entire businesses and brands on platforms like TikTok, the implications of this ban are deeply personal. This isn't just how we make our money, it's a part of our identity, it's how we express ourselves. As a creator myself, TikTok represents a large part of my business, and the reach on a platform like TikTok is unmatched. Granted, it's one of the most fickle platforms I've ever used as a content creator, but the opportunity to go viral and to reach millions and millions of people I've never met before, unparalleled. If this ban were to go through, it'd be felt by millions of users across the United States who'd just be cut off from the platform and from the creators and the communities that they've built. For example, has your partner ever cut you off from sex? It's not fun. Now, for a second, imagine with me that your partner is the US government and TikTok is this. I take it back. The government would never stop fucking us for long enough for that analogy to make sense, so let's reset. And I don't think that would work anyway because I don't cry after using TikTok, so now Now, the only way that ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, can avoid this oncoming ban is if they divest TikTok to a US-owned company that complies with the government's regulations that they're putting in place with this bill. Now, just recently, Biden actually signed the bill into law, but it's going to be another couple months before we actually see anything happening. Not to mention the fact that ByteDance is actually taking this bill to court on the grounds that it's violating individuals' free speech. So it'll be more than that 6-month window dedicated in the bill before we actually see any real changes happening, if they happen at all. But here's the thing, a TikTok ban doesn't even feel like a new or original threat anymore. Like, this isn't the first time that a TikTok ban has been threatened.
Been here before. Going in circles.
And yet here we are still scrolling and going down with the ship. And the crazy thing is there hasn't really been any mass exodus of users from the platform as a result of all of these attempted bans. As a matter of fact, TikTok's user base in the United States has just continued to grow. So I don't know what the fuck. If anything, TikTok is more popular now than it ever has been. It's probably something about like the bad boy allure to like, ooh, being on the run from the government. It's like a never ending cycle of pain and relief. Like there's a new ban threat and then everyone gets worried and there are concerns and debates and discussions, and then it either gets overturned or goes away, and then everything kind of just goes back to normal. So it's really tempting to brush that off and kind of go back into that pattern. So why shouldn't we just brush these warnings off like extra noise, like an Insane Clown Posse song with less bloodshed? Also, like ICP, I'm not sure that Congress knows how magnets work, so. Fucking magnets, how do they work? But this most recent time is different. The bill has been passed in the House and the Congress and has been signed into law by Biden, and it's actively being challenged in the courts right now. So what's really in the bill anyway? The PAFACAA, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, which I am always a huge proponent of. It is funny to hear it coming from the government this time though. Basically, the bill would stop companies from sharing and maintaining apps owned by foreign adversaries here in the United States, but any domestic-owned companies would be free to continue whatever tomfuckery the government already lets them do. And importantly, the bill has a deadline. Companies that the bill targets, like TikTok, have 180 days from the day that the bill is signed into law to either divest or be completely banned from the United States. So what's different this time? Why so serious? Well, the concern has always been that China, or more specifically the CCP, the distinction is important. The CCP being the Chinese Communist Party, the party that's in control, China being the country, but also the people. So the CCP would be able to use an app like this for mass surveillance and influence and intelligence gathering, especially given how popular TikTok is and just how much information people put on it and how much you can actually gather from people's viewing habits, because that algorithm is crazy. Now, it's important to note that this isn't the first time that the US government has taken actions against TikTok in the name of security. In the past, they've carried out partial bans like prohibiting TikTok on government property, including like government Wi-Fi's and government devices. I go to the University of Texas at Austin. I can't use TikTok on the university Wi-Fi. As if scrolling through TikTok was the worst thing happening on government property. I've seen House of Cards. I know what y'all are doing. But in the past year, lawmakers in the US, in Europe, in Asia, in Canada have all been working on crafting some kind of a limitation against TikTok. For example, in February of 2023, the White House instructed federal agencies to remove the app from government devices within 30 days. And some cities have prohibited city employees from even downloading the app, but I don't think that's constitutional. Like, that seems fucking weird. And over the last year, Shou Chu, the CEO of TikTok, has spent a lot of time at Congress answering questions over and over again, which I always find really ironic, because if you've seen any of the questioning that they do of the big tech body CEOs and executives, like, these guys don't know what the fuck is going on. Some of these guys didn't even know that ads were how Facebook paid for things. Like,
what are you doing, Steph?
but I think it's important to note that as much as I like and use TikTok, and it's obviously a large part of my business, and as much of a healthy distaste as I have on any kinds of takes that the US government has on personal privacy, it is important to note that the US government isn't the only one that has these concerns. A lot of countries do. And there are some valid reasons for concerns around espionage and data privacy, and if you think it's just like, whatever, they have my data anyway, there is a surprising amount that you can do with the amount of personal data that you can collect from just watching someone's feed. Several countries are worried about cybersecurity, privacy, the potential for espionage, and just the all-around like volume of data harvesting that can be done and has already been done through the app. And multiple countries have already banned TikTok in their borders. India was one of the first ones to ban it outright, but it's also banned in several other countries, a number of which don't have stellar human rights histories. Some of the countries that have banned it include Iran, Jordan, Kyrgyzstan, and even Nepal. In Europe, multiple countries like Netherlands, Norway, Belgium, and Denmark have severely limited access to TikTok, especially on government devices. Meanwhile, Canada and New Zealand have done something similar to what the US has done currently, where they completely ban TikTok on any kind of government device entirely. Unsurprisingly, Australia's only contribution to the conversation thus far has been to stop churning out Bluey episodes for long enough to call every other country a C word.
Someone tried to find a squid in the aquarium today.
Well, maybe the squid was being a cunt.
Relax. It means something completely different over there. An interesting case to help kind of illustrate the power of what you can do with data, and also weirdly foreshadows the situation that we're having here with TikTok, is what happened with Grindr in 2020. Grindr was actually largely owned by Tencent, a Chinese-based conglomerate which is largely controlled by the CCP. Grindr is a popular LGBTQ dating site, and in 2020, the US actually forced the divestiture of Grindr from Tencent, its parent company. This is one of those rare cases where the US government actually did something to help the LGBTQ community. So that's exciting. This may not surprise you, but laws around being a member of the LGBTQ community aren't super strong in most places, one of those places being China. And apparently, the data that was being collected by Grindr and fed to the CCP was being used to discriminate against users of the platform who were coming from the United States, US citizens. Of course, it could have been that US politicians considered it their job to discriminate against marginalized communities, and they didn't really appreciate the competition that the CCP was posing. They really wanted to corner the market. But whatever the motivation for the decision, in 2020, the CCP was forced to divest from its holdings within Grindr for national security reasons. And that decision was a good one. That said, the case with TikTok in the United States is a little bit more nuanced than it might appear. This may be a shock to all the virgins out there, but money plays a big part in politics and political decisions. I've seen House of Cards, don't you fucking lie to me. So when we're looking at the US's decision to try to ban TikTok, it's important for us to take into account the role that money might be playing, especially when we take into account the fact that TikTok really is the only major social media platform that isn't owned by a US-based company. Now we're gonna take a pause because this is the part of the show where we need to say thank you to a very special someone, Byte, for sponsoring this video. Thank you, Byte, for hooking me up with my nighttime plastic grills. I appreciate you very much. The people at Byte reached out and asked if we wanted to work together. I got aligners a couple years ago. I wasn't very good at wearing them, which is why I was really excited to partner with Byte for this video. The problem is I'm just not good at wearing them during the day. So Byte said, don't worry about it. Just put this in your mouth and we'll fix your teeth right up. And I said, that's not normally how I start my Thursdays, but all right, I'll give it a shot if it means good teeth. It was super easy. They sent over an impression kit a couple weeks ago. It took like 30 minutes to do the whole thing. I shipped it back. It took about 2 or 3 weeks to get this bad boy right here. It's perfect for me because I can wear those aligners only at night and it's not a big deal. In fact, it's specifically designed for that, which is perfect. So if you want to straighten up your smile without having to wear any of the plastic aligners during the day, go ahead and hit that link below and use code Keith for $200 off your Byte alignment treatment. Thank you again to Byte for sponsoring this video. Through its parent company Meta, Facebook allegedly engaged in some illicit services with a company called Targeted Victory. Targeted Victory is a Republican consulting firm, and basically Facebook paid Targeted Victory to run, I'd call them smear campaigns against TikTok, trying to paint TikTok in as bad a light as possible. These campaigns allegedly occurred in March of 2020 and were run with the purpose of casting TikTok in a bad light. The goal was to sway public opinion against TikTok. And Targeted Victory allegedly did this by painting TikTok as a threat to safety and to kids. Because as everyone knows, TikTok dances and Fortnite trends are the gateway to socialism. And hard drugs. Nah, JK, that's definitely college. The strategy reportedly involved generating negative publicity around TikTok by creating and disseminating op-eds and letters to different media platforms, which sounds really complicated, but basically they made a lot of shit up and sent it to traditional media, who, I don't know, might have a vested interest in taking down social media that is taking away most of their business. But I digress. Despite what Fox News says, Skibbity Toilet is not a Trojan horse for Marxism, and you can quote me on that. Targeted Victory's smear campaign was allegedly an attempt to steer the conversation away from Meta's issues with privacy and mishandling of data in the past. Because, if you'll recall, they don't exactly have a sterling record with all of that. So basically, they were trying to paint their biggest competition out to be a worse version of what they were already doing. And they did that by presenting TikTok's connections to the CCP. The way Meta sees it, if Zuck steals your data, it's okay because like America, but if TikTok does it, it's like bad and stuff. And let me be clear, I am not for stealing anyone's data. I am a massive data safety proponent, but the hypocrisy is quite interesting. TikTok has become critical to both businesses and to individual entrepreneurs. Recent data suggests that the app helped create over 1 million jobs, both directly and indirectly in the US alone. Small businesses are able to leverage TikTok's massive reach and the ability to go completely mind-bogglingly viral to reach audiences they never could before and completely change their businesses and lives. I mean, shit, TikTok changed my life. And to this day, it's still the place where I have the vast majority of my audience. If it gets banned, I mean, like, there are other platforms, but TikTok does have a very unique place in the ecosystem. I mean, literally the fact that every other platform is trying to copy it is evidence enough of that. There's Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and don't get me started on whatever the fuck Twitter or X is trying to do right now. And I'm okay with the blood ritual sacrifices that you need in order to get a blue check mark on X, but having to call Elon Musk daddy? I don't think I can do it. Meanwhile, you can still get verified for free on TikTok, which is a great plus. Really, all you need to grow a sizable audience on TikTok is a smartphone. And a thick badonk definitely helps, but like, you don't technically need it, you know? And it's important to note that despite all of the concerns around espionage and data privacy and safety with the CCP, there still isn't a documented case of the CCP using TikTok to spy on US citizens. Of course, there have been like a bazillion data breaches of US-based companies, but like, Congress can only worry about so much at a time, so we'll let it pass. But this lack of concrete evidence is important because it's fueled debates around whether this is just speculation and if this is massive overreach and if it really is just a desire to shut down free speech and is an infringement on the right to free enterprise. The communities that gather on TikTok typically aren't super friendly to the people who are trying to ban it. Might be the reason they're trying to do it. Historically, TikTok has been a pivotal platform for underrepresented voices. It's provided a unique space for Gen Z creators, marginalized groups and minorities, and has allowed a platform for educational creators that might not have had the same opportunities on other platforms. Basically, TikTok is woke and must be stopped before any more kids realize how fucked we are if business continues as usual. The new legislation targeting TikTok is less focused on banning the app than it is at severing its ties to foreign power. They've already tried the banning route several times and it just hasn't worked. But looking at it through a power play perspective, it starts to make a little more sense. Because the bill does give TikTok an out. It does give ByteDance the ability to sell TikTok to an organization that or person that is not considered an enemy of the United States. And if it does that, it would be able to continue business as usual here in the US. In a way, it is kind of ironic that TikTok, which has become a place for people to express their views of all different kinds and express themselves freely, is owned by a company that is largely controlled by a country that doesn't have a great history of censorship. And again, the distinction here is important. The issue here is not with China or its people, it's with the CCP, a party that retains power by squashing the freedoms of its people and many others. And while the US's moves to ban TikTok aren't really something that I can get behind, I also don't like the thought of the CCP controlling TikTok either. The concerns around privacy and security are significant, but a lot like Dune Part 2, it really needs to be unpacked to be understood. What does it mean when we talk about privacy in this context? Basically, it means the potential for sensitive data to be used outside of the legal and ethical frameworks here in the US. Pretend the CCP is like the Harkonnens.
Squeeze hard.
Yes, Uncle.
You wouldn't want the Harkonnens to find out that you've been surfing the web for sandworm hentai, would you? What? Like I'm the only one who's craved some Muad'Dib on Shai Hulud action. You've seen how deep that sandworm throat goes? Whatever. But a great example of privacy violations in the US was actually what was going on with period tracker data after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Basically, governments of several states, including Texas, were trying to use the data that was collected by these period apps to try and prosecute abortion cases. Luckily, this was challenged in court, but this shows how that kind of information can be used to violate people's personal freedoms. Just imagine if TikTok got a hold of some really private data. I don't know, your Pornhub search history. They'd be showing you ads for blowtorches and edible panties faster than you can say,
So there you go. Oh.
What are you doing, step bro?
But the ongoing conversation around the TikTok ban in the United States inevitably leads us back to the app's ties with China. Specifically, its ruling party, the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. Now, the CCP can be a real POS when it comes to UDHR. IYK. The CCP's human rights record is filled with abuses. Notable among these abuses are cases like with the Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims in places like Xinjiang, where those minorities face intense surveillance, repression, under policies framed by Beijing as anti-terrorist policies. In Tibet, the repression of cultural and religious identities continues, while Taiwan faces constant military intimidation and threats. And I'm pretty sure all the shit you buy on Wish and Temu isn't manufactured under the most humane of conditions either. And while the US clearly has its own human rights issues, Republicans trying to erase the existence of trans people for start, the scope and nature of the abuses of the CCP is on a different level. It just is. For example, as a white man in the United States, I have the ability to speak up freely against my government and call them on their bullshit without worrying about having any kind of repercussions for what I say. Unfortunately, that freedom just doesn't exist in China under CCP rule. Jack Ma, one of the richest men in the world at the time and the founder of Alibaba, went missing after he criticized the CCP. Chinese laws, particularly those that relate to national security and cybersecurity, mandate that individuals and organizations fully cooperate with state intelligence efforts. This includes turning over of data to the government should they request it, without sufficient legal safeguards against misuse. The 2017 National Intelligence Law and the 2014 Counter-Espionage Law are explicit in these requirements, posing a risk that at any point in time, if they should choose, the CCP could collect all of the data that TikTok is harvesting locally, if they say that it's deemed for national security or intelligence purposes. For TikTok users, this is a legal framework around which the CCP could theoretically just requisition any and all data on them that TikTok has gathered. Think of ByteDance as a fresh-faced college sophomore and the CCP as a frat bro senior with a fistful of roofies, and you'll get the idea.
Hundreds of college students swarmed a frat house after a frat brother allegedly raped a 17-year-old sorority girl. It happened at the University of Nebraska. The fraternity is Phi Gamma Delta, but it's more commonly known as Fiji.
Am I right, Fiji? People use social media to do unethical shit all the time. I mean, how do you think Kylie Jenner got so popular? That's a JK. But for a more real example, all you have to do is look at what happened in Myanmar with Facebook in 2016. Basically, Facebook was used as a tool to incite violence and a genocide against the Rohingya community. And this happened largely because local authorities couldn't regulate and monitor the platform. When you think about it, Mark Zuckerberg is kind of a lot like Robert Oppenheimer. They both created something with unprecedented capacity for destruction. And one of them looks like an alien wearing a clammy rubber flesh suit trying to look like a human. The other, of course, is Robert Oppenheimer. The US is not immune from such risks like what happened in Myanmar either. I mean, just look at what happened in 2016 with our elections here. During the 2016 elections, Russian operatives used platforms like, I guess, X now, but at the time Twitter and Facebook to sowing discord and really amplifying racial and political tensions. Not that they had to try all that hard, if we're being honest. You'd be hard pressed to find anyone willing on either side to piss on a member of the other side if they were on fire. Except, of course, for those who get off on water sports, because kink knows no political affiliation. But recognizing the risk posed by the exploitation of social media, the United States is attempting to take steps to prevent something like that from happening in the future. Now, let me be clear. I don't want TikTok to be banned, nor do I think social media is inherently a bad thing. I'm a content creator. I have a vested interest in seeing this platform do well. In fact, I think that TikTok, for the most part, is a really good thing. I mean, without it, I'd have no idea why Kim Kardashian and Taylor Swift were beefing. Not that I really get it now, but I know that it involves someone named Amy. Social media in general has immense power to reshape the way that we think and communicate. And with great power comes great banning or responsibility, I forget. But I'm talking about this technology because I believe so strongly in it. We need to get this right. Any powerful tool has the potential to cause great harm or do immense amounts of good, all of which depends on who controls it. And that's the crux of the problem here. The CCP has immense control over companies that are based in China. Notably, ByteDance has an internal CCP committee with its secretary, Zhang Fuping, who also serves as the company's editor-in-chief. Also, the CCP is known for having sophisticated disinformation campaigns. Reportedly, they're messing around with generative AI to see if they can do that a little bit better. So far, the efforts have yielded images with an unnatural number of fingers. Not that we don't like that. Still, with the CCP's genetics wing still working hard at breeding kids with 7 fingers, there's still a bit of a gap between what AI can do and the real world. TikTok is known for its recommendation algorithm. That's what makes it so special and sets it apart. It is the best in the world at curating content that its users will find engaging. And while that led to it rising in popularity so quickly, it's also a significant risk when you think about it, especially when the app is in the hands of an entity that has ulterior motives like the CCP does. I almost wish that TikTok was owned by something like the Empire. At least then their evil plans would be like right out in the open. Instead, the CCP is a lot more like the Lannisters from Game of Thrones, except minus the incest, I think. There are lots of like secret plans and machinations going on behind the scenes. It's really hard to know exactly what's happening. But given that ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, is under the influence of the CCP, there are a lot of concerns about the platform's possible use to disseminate false information or promote specific political messages, you know, like X. The US government's scrutiny of TikTok is a form of checks and balances. It's an effort to regulate a powerful social media company that has the ability to potentially sway public opinion and societal norms under foreign influence in a way that doesn't necessarily adhere to democratic principles, you know, like X. Oh, shut up. Elon Musk is from South Africa. It works. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that this is right? Do you think that the US should ban TikTok? Do you think divestiture is the right way to go about it? Do you think the CCP would ever use TikTok to influence Americans? In a lot of ways, I think this whole situation is a lot like the tagline for 2004 Alien vs. Predator. Whoever wins, we lose. But I think we'd lose a lot less if the US didn't ban TikTok. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Like and subscribe. See y'all next time. Peace.